The courtroom went silent when the janitor stood up, not because anyone respected him, but because no one expected him to speak. And when he did, the words that came out of his mouth made a federal judge freeze mid-sentence. "Your Honor, I'll represent her." 5 words. 5 words that would expose a conspiracy worth $28 billion. 5 words that would nearly get 3 people killed. But here's what nobody in that room knew. The man holding the mop? He used to own the courtroom. And 15 years ago, the same people now destroying his client destroyed him first. His name was Roland Einstein. And if you'd walked into Manhattan Federal Courthouse 15 years ago, you would have seen his name on the directory. 3rd floor, corner office, Whitfield and Associates. Roland wasn't just any lawyer. He was the kind of lawyer other lawyers called when they were in trouble. Sharp, relentless. The kind of man who could dismantle a witness in 3 questions and make it look easy. He had a daughter named Marion, a wife he loved, a reputation people envied. And then he made one mistake. He took a case against Atlantic Energy Corporation, a whistleblower case. An engineer named Arthur Calloway came to him with documents proving Atlantic Energy was covering up safety violations at their processing plants. Violations that were poisoning communities, killing people slowly. Roland believed him. He filed the case. And Atlantic Energy didn't just fight back. They erased him, fabricated evidence, bribed witnesses, planted documents that made it look like Roland had been taking bribes for years. Within 6 months, his law license was suspended. His marriage collapsed under the weight of the scandal. His reputation was buried so deep no one would touch him. And Arthur Calloway, the whistleblower who came to him for help, disappeared. No one ever saw him again. Roland spent the next 15 years working as a janitor. Same courthouse, different life. Every day, he mopped the floors where he used to argue cases. Every day, he watched lawyers in expensive suits walk past him like he was invisible. And every day, he told himself the same thing. Never again. Never again would he step into a courtroom. Never again would he risk everything for someone else's fight. But 15 years later, on a cold Tuesday morning in March, he broke that promise. Her name was Caroline Lockhart, 34 years old, billionaire, CEO of Lockhart Technologies, and according to the prosecution, a thief. The case was all over the news. Caroline had developed something revolutionary, a quantum processor, not the kind that needed to be frozen to near absolute zero to function. Hers worked at room temperature. If it worked, and every test said it did, it would change everything. Computing, energy storage, medicine, entire industries. But Nexus Innovations, a competitor, claimed she stole it from them. They said she hacked their servers, stole their research, rebranded it as her own. The evidence looked damning. Emails, server logs, testimony from her own employees. Caroline hired the best legal team money could buy, Morgan & Steele, the kind of firm that charged $1,500 an hour and won cases before they even started. But on the morning of the trial, something strange happened. Her entire legal team didn't show up. Not one lawyer, not one paralegal, nothing. The lead attorney, a man named David Harrington, sent a one-line email at 7:43 a.m. "We can no longer represent Ms. Lockhart due to unforeseen conflicts of interest." That was it. No explanation, no replacement, no warning. Caroline sat alone at the defense table, surrounded by prosecutors who looked like sharks circling blood. The judge, a stern woman named Elizabeth Mora, was ready to issue a default judgment, which meant Caroline would lose. Automatically. No trial, no defense, just loss. And that's when Roland stood up. He was mopping the back of the courtroom, wearing a gray maintenance uniform, holding a mop in one hand. And he said 5 words that stopped everything. "Your Honor, I'll represent her." The courtroom erupted, not with applause, with laughter. The prosecutors laughed. The court staff whispered. Even Judge Mora looked like she didn't know whether to be offended or confused. "Excuse me," she said. Roland set down his mop, walked to the front of the courtroom, and pulled a laminated card from his wallet. His bar card. Still active. Still valid. "Roland Einstein, Your Honor, member of the New York State Bar. I'm offering to represent Ms. Lockhart pro bono." The lead prosecutor, a woman named Augusta Fenwick, stood immediately. "Your Honor, this is absurd. The defendant can't be represented by a janitor." Judge Mora raised a hand. "Ms. Fenwick, if Mr. Einstein is a member of the bar in good standing, he has every right to offer representation." She turned to Caroline. Ms. Lockhart, do you accept this offer? Caroline stared at Roland. She had no idea who he was. No idea why he was doing this. But she had no other options. Yes, she said quietly. I accept. Judge Moore sighed. Very well. Mr. Einstein, you have until tomorrow morning to prepare. We'll reconvene at 9 a.m. The courtroom emptied slowly. People whispered. Cameras flashed outside. And Roland stood at the defense table, staring at the case files like he was looking at a mountain he'd forgotten how to climb. Caroline approached him cautiously. Why are you doing this? Roland didn't look up. Because 15 years ago, someone did to me what they're doing to you. Who? He finally met her eyes. The same people. That night, Roland didn't sleep. He went home to his small apartment in Queens. One bedroom, peeling wallpaper, a single desk lamp. Marion, his daughter, was there waiting. 23 years old, law student, and the only person who never stopped believing in him. Dad, what are you doing? She asked when he walked in carrying 3 boxes of case files. Something stupid, he said. Good. I'll help. They worked through the night. Marion pulled up everything she could find on Nexus Innovations. Financial records, patent filings, corporate structure. And then she found it. A shell company buried 6 layers deep. Nexus Innovations wasn't independent. It was owned by a holding company, which was owned by another holding company, which was owned by Atlantic Energy Corporation, the same company that destroyed Roland 15 years ago. Marion looked at her father. Dad, they're doing it again. Roland's jaw tightened. I know. This isn't just about Caroline, is it? No, he said quietly. It's about making sure they don't get away with it twice. But something else was bothering him. Caroline's legal team didn't just quit. They sabotaged her. Key documents were missing from the files. Witness lists were incomplete. Discovery requests were never filed. It wasn't neglect. It was deliberate. Someone paid them to lose. And if Atlantic Energy was behind Nexus Innovations, then they'd paid Caroline's own lawyers to destroy her case. Marion leaned back. If we expose this, they'll come after you again. I know. They'll come after me too. Roland looked at his daughter. You don't have to do this. She smiled. Yes, I do. The next morning, Roland walked into the courtroom wearing a suit. Not an expensive one. He'd bought it at a thrift store for $40. But it fit. And when he stood at the defense table next to Caroline, he didn't look like a janitor anymore. He looked like a lawyer. The prosecution opened strong. Augusta Fenwick painted Caroline as a corporate thief. Greedy, ruthless, willing to steal trade secrets to beat her competition. She presented emails, server logs, testimony from a Nexus engineer named Willie Chun who claimed Caroline personally hired him to hack Nexus servers. It was damning, and the jury looked convinced. Then it was Roland's turn. He stood slowly, walked to the center of the room, and for a moment, he just looked at the jury. Then he spoke. 15 years ago, I was a lawyer in this courthouse. I represented a man who tried to expose corporate corruption, and for that, I lost everything. Augusta shot to her feet. Objection. Relevance. Judge Moore frowned. Mr. Einstein, get to the point. Roland nodded. The point, Your Honor, is this. The same corporation that destroyed my client 15 years ago is the same corporation behind this case today. The courtroom erupted. Judge Moore banged her gavel. Mr. Einstein, that's a serious accusation. Do you have proof? I do. Marion stood from the gallery and brought forward a folder. Inside were corporate documents showing the ownership trail from Nexus Innovations to Atlantic Energy. Roland held them up. Nexus Innovations is a shell company. It's owned by Atlantic Energy Corporation, the same company that has spent decades suppressing clean energy technology because it threatens their fossil fuel empire. Augusta's face went pale. Your Honor, this is a conspiracy theory. No, Roland interrupted. It's a conspiracy, and I'm going to prove it. Over the next 3 days, Roland systematically dismantled the prosecution's case. He cross-examined Willie Chun, the engineer who claimed Caroline hired him. Mr. Chun, you testified that Ms. Lockhart paid you $50,000 to hack Nexus servers. Is that correct? Yes. And this payment was made via wire transfer. Yes. From which account? Willie hesitated. I don't remember. Roland held up a document. Because there is no record of any such transfer. In fact, bank records show Ms. Lockhart's accounts had no outgoing payments to you at all. Willie's face flushed. Maybe it was cash. $50,000 in cash? And you have no receipt? No record? Nothing. Silence. Roland leaned in. Mr. Chun, how much did Nexus Innovations pay you to lie on this stand? Objection. But the damage was done. The jury saw the hesitation, the inconsistency, and doubt crept in. Next, Roland brought in Caroline's original research documents. Notarized. Dated 2 years before Nexus even filed their first patent application. The quantum processor wasn't stolen. It was hers from the beginning. But the real bombshell came when Marion discovered something in the server logs. The alleged hack? It came from inside Nexus Innovations, from an internal IP address. Someone at Nexus had staged the hack themselves, framed Caroline, and used it as leverage to destroy her company. When Roland presented this in court, Augusta looked like she'd been hit. Judge Mora leaned forward. Miss Fenwick, do you have an explanation for this? Augusta didn't answer, because she couldn't. The case was falling apart, and everyone knew it. That night, Roland came home to find his apartment door open. Not broken, just open. He stepped inside carefully. Everything looked normal. Nothing stolen, nothing broken. But on his kitchen table was a single photograph of Marion, walking to class, taken that morning. No note, no message, just the photo. Roland's hands shook as he called her. Marion, where are you? Library. What? Stay there. I'm coming to get you. He grabbed his coat and ran. When he arrived, Marion was waiting outside, confused. Dad, what's going on? He showed her the photo. Her face went pale. They know where I go to school. We're leaving. Now. They went to Caroline's estate, a sprawling property in Westchester with security gates and cameras. Caroline met them at the door. What happened? Roland explained. Caroline's face hardened. You're staying here. Both of you. We can't. Yes, you can. I have security. Cyril, my head of security, is ex-NYPD. You'll be safe. Roland wanted to argue, but he looked at Marion's face, and he nodded. 2 days later, someone knocked on the estate's front gate at 2 a.m. Cyril answered the intercom. Who is it? A woman's voice, shaking, terrified. My name is Clara Brennan. I'm Caroline's COO. Please, I need to see her. It's urgent. Cyril hesitated. Then he let her in. Clara stumbled into the house. Her face was bruised. Her hands were trembling. Caroline rushed to her. Clara, what happened? Clara broke down. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. For what? Clara pulled a phone from her pocket. They threatened my family. My daughter. They said if I didn't help them, they'd hurt her. Who? Christiana Vance, CEO of Nexus. She had me plant evidence. Sabotage your case. I gave them access to your emails, your files, everything. Caroline's face went white. You've been working with them this whole time? I didn't want to. They forced me. Roland stepped forward. Clara, do you have proof? She nodded, handed him the phone. Everything's on here. Emails, recordings, transfer logs. Christiana thought I deleted it, but I kept copies. Roland opened the phone. His eyes widened. Inside were messages between Christiana Vance and executives at Atlantic Energy. Plans to suppress Caroline's technology. Bribes paid to Caroline's legal team. Instructions to stage the server hack. And something else. Plans to eliminate Roland if he got too close to the truth. Marion read over his shoulder. Dad, they're planning to kill you. Roland's jaw tightened. Then we moved fast. At 4:17 a.m., the estate's perimeter alarms went off. Cyril's voice crackled over the intercom. Everyone to the panic room. Now. Roland grabbed Marion. Caroline grabbed Clara. They ran. The panic room was in the basement. Steel reinforced. Soundproof. Equipped with communications. They sealed the door just as gunfire erupted outside. Marion covered her ears. What's happening? Cyril's voice came through the intercom. Armed intruders. At least 6. Military-grade equipment. Caroline's face was pale. They're not here to scare us. Roland looked at her. No. They're here to finish this. For 20 minutes, they heard gunfire. Shouting. Explosions. Then, silence. Marion whispered. Are they gone? Cyril's voice came back. Police are here. FBI too. Stay put until I give the all clear. 10 minutes later, the door opened. A man in an FBI jacket stood there. I'm Agent Arthur Dennison. You're safe now. They stepped out into chaos. Broken glass. Bullet holes in the walls. 3 men in tactical gear were being arrested in the driveway. Arthur approached Roland. Mr. Einstein, we've been investigating Atlantic Energy for 2 years. The phone you have? It's exactly what we needed. Roland handed it over. Then use it. By sunrise, the arrests had begun. Christiana Vance, executives at Nexus Innovations, 3 board members at Atlantic Energy. Even Augusta Fenwick, the prosecutor, was taken into custody for obstruction of justice. She'd known about the conspiracy, and she'd been paid to ignore it. The case against Caroline was dismissed. All charges dropped. Judge Mora issued a formal apology. And for the first time in weeks, Caroline allowed herself to breathe. But Roland wasn't celebrating. He stood in the courthouse hallway, staring at the directory. 3rd floor, where his old office used to be. Marion found him there. "Dad, you did it." He shook his head. "We did it." She smiled. "So what now?" Roland looked at her. "Now? We start over." 2 months later, a new law firm opened in Lower Manhattan. Einstein and Einstein. Civil rights cases. Wrongful termination. Corporate whistleblowers. The kind of cases no one else wanted to touch. Marion passed the bar on her first try. And together, father and daughter took on the fights others were too afraid to face. Caroline funded their first year with a $15 million grant from the Lockhart Legal Justice Fund. She didn't just want justice for herself. She wanted it for everyone who couldn't afford it. Clara Brennan testified against Christiana Vance in exchange for immunity. Her daughter was safe. And for the first time in years, Clara could sleep. And Roland? He never mopped another floor. But he never forgot what it felt like to be invisible, to be dismissed, to be told he didn't matter. Because that's what made him fight harder. They say justice is blind. But that's not true. Justice sees everything. It just doesn't always act. Because justice requires someone willing to stand up. Someone willing to risk everything. Someone willing to fight when everyone else walks away. Roland Einstein was a lawyer who became a janitor. And then became a lawyer again. Not because he wanted glory. Not because he wanted revenge. But because when he saw someone standing alone in a courtroom, facing a system designed to crush her, he remembered what that felt like. And he refused to let it happen again. Caroline's quantum processor eventually launched. It changed the world, just like she said it would. But the real revolution? It wasn't the technology. It was the reminder that power doesn't win because it's right. It wins because people are too afraid to fight back. And sometimes, all it takes is one person with a mop to stand up and say, "No more." If this story reminded you that courage doesn't require a title, just a choice, hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me the moment that hit you hardest. And subscribe for more stories like this. Thanks for watching. And remember, the people who change the world aren't always the ones with power. Sometimes, they're the ones holding a mop.